On asylum seekers, now, clearly turning back the boats will impact on our relationship with Indonesia. Why did you not discuss this issue with President Yudhoyono when you met him this week?
Well, I don't talk about what I discussed with President Yudhoyono, Barry, and this is one of the problems that the government has got. They're more interested in making heroes of themselves in the media than building a good relationship with Indonesia.
No, but it's clear that you didn't discuss it with him. Now, why did you not discuss it? Is it because you were troubled about what he might say?
Again, I'm not going to say what I did and didn't discuss with the President, but the fact is, if we're talking about the issue of turning boats around, it's been done before, it can be done again.
But if that's your view, why not be upfront with him? I mean, you've got an opportunity, you're sitting across from him, why would you not raise it with him?
Well, as I said, you shouldn't assume what was and wasn't discussed.
My sources are pretty good. Well, you did not raise this issue with him.
Well, the fact is, Barry, Indonesia knows exactly what our position is. They know exactly what our position is. They know that on day one of an incoming coalition government, the Navy will be given new orders to deal with illegal boat arrivals and with safety at sea.
These are orders. They don't like that policy.
And I accept that from time to time Australia will do things that the Indonesians don't particularly like. The difference between a government I lead and the current government is I won't be playing this for media advantage, and I will try to have a no surprises policy with the Indonesians where at least we tell them well in advance what we've got in mind.
A no surprises policy, you had an opportunity to talk to him about it and you didn't.
Well, it's not as if the Indonesians are in ignorance as to what the coalition intends.
How would it work? A boat turns up on the horizon, you locate the boat, what happens then?
It'll work the same way in the future that it's worked in the past. And let's never forget, Barry, that Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard are both on the record at different times supporting the policy of turning around boats.
But how does it work, though? You locate the boat, as I said, you take away fuel and food or something to make it difficult for them to carry on?
It's the same as it worked in the past.
Well, remind us of how that was.
Well, I'm not going to go into those sorts of details, but
it
was
critical. I mean, tell us how it works.
And various naval commanders have explained all this in great detail before Senate Estimates Committee and elsewhere. But it was done in the past, it can be done in the future.
But why can't you give us a sense of how it actually works?
Well, because you've just begun to give us a sense of that, Barry, and we've had this explained to us by the naval commanders, and I don't want to be setting myself up as a modern-day Captain Hornblower.
Yeah, and one of those was Admiral Chris Barrie, and he doesn't like it. He thinks it's dangerous, both for the Navy and for the asylum seekers.
And I'm not saying that this is particularly pleasant work. It is a very tough job.
Dangerous work.
Yes, it's dangerous work, but that's why people join our armed forces. They go into harm's way to help our country.
But you conceded it's dangerous, then why go through with it?
Because it's less dangerous all round than these boats taking to sea. You see, as long as the boats keep coming, the tragedies will keep happening. And the great thing about turning the boats around is that it sends the clearest possible signal to the people smugglers and their customers: the game is up. The game is up. And that's the best possible way to stop the boats.
And I still don't see, though, if you take away the fuel, for example, they just keep going until they run out of fuel, and then it's Australia's obligation to rescue them.
Well, as I said, Barry, it's been done in the past. The professionalism of the Navy was up to it in the past. I have no doubt that the Navy is just as professional now as it was in 2001.
And then they end up in Indonesia. Indonesia is not a signatory to the conventions. What's the difference between that and sending them to Malaysia?
Well, they put themselves in Indonesia.
But they still end up in a country. You're allowing them to end up in a country that's not a signatory to the convention.
That they put themselves in.
It's their fault.
Well, they put themselves in Indonesia. They didn't put themselves in Malaysia.
Will you nominate an MP to sit on the multi-party reference group?
You know, we have a policy, Barry. We don't need an external committee to tell us what our policy is. And rather than appoint new committees to tell her what her policy should be, the Prime Minister should be using the committee that's been set up for this purpose, the Cabinet. The Cabinet is the committee that should be deciding what the government's policy is, and what the government should be doing is adopting a policy that it can get through the Parliament.
So it's nothing to do with the terms of reference. You won't be putting anybody up?
Well, I think as a courtesy, the Prime Minister should be telling us exactly what this committee is supposed to achieve.
What's the point? You've just said you're not interested in sitting on it.
The committee which should be dealing with this is the Cabinet. You see, it's interesting, isn't it, Barry? On the carbon tax, Julia Gillard said she had to work with the Parliament she'd got. On mandatory pre-commitment, she said she had to work with the Parliament she'd got. On company tax cuts, she said she had to work with the Parliament she's got. Why won't she work with the Parliament she's got and take the offshore processing that this Parliament will approve, which is offshore processing at Nauru, PNG and 146 other countries that have signed the convention?